This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and it's my job to help you grow your leadership skills, grow your business, and grow your income. Today, I've got an interview with Todd Staley from IWR North America, and he's going to share a few things with you. This is a great interview, covered a lot of ground, including topics like how to grow a business by shrinking the client base. It's a little counterintuitive, but it'll make sense once you listen to it. Todd also talks about how they use reporting to track productivity and goes into the weeds a little bit on that. That's going to be really helpful. Talks about how his business is primarily in the labor management business, and he's going to give you some tips for winning at that. Culture is really important in their organization as well. It's helped them grow to company that's in the $40 to $50 million range. He's going to talk about that, how to grow leaders inside of that culture. He's also going to give you some really good advice on how to grow a new service line. If you're planning on taking on a new line of business, he's got some great advice for that because they've just gone through that. And he's also going to give you some advice on how to sell to general contractors and point to the value that you provide. It's a great interview. We're going to get to that in just a minute, but there's two things I want to share with you. If you are a construction business owner, I've got two things that'll help you. First of all is the Construction Business Accelerator program. If you like this podcast, you like the content, but you want to go deeper and you want to put systems in place for your business, you want to eliminate some chaos, you want to figure out how to make your business more efficient, then you may be interested in the Construction Business Accelerator program. Here's what a couple of Construction Business Accelerator members would tell you. Jay from Texas said this. He said, "We didn't know what we didn't know. You've been really good about answering questions, giving us direction. You've given us information on programs that we didn't even know existed, and that's been a huge help. Todd, your expertise helps us solve a lot of problems in a very easy way versus us having to go reinvent the wheel." Roy from Ohio says, "Todd does a great job helping companies like ours to grow. We have implemented a lot of what we've learned in the Construction Business Accelerator that's been helping to manage and grow our company." So for a limited time, when you join the Construction Business Accelerator online program, you're going to get around $9,000 worth of bonuses, including the Revenue Maximizer, which is an absolute game changer, the Sales Accelerator, which is going to help you systematize your selling process, that's going to build up your backlog, the Project Execution Formula, the Mindset Upgrade, and a whole bunch more. These bonuses are not going to be around for very long, and there's really only so many spots available. So to find out how the Construction Business Accelerator is going to help you maximize revenue, put financial anxiety and stress behind you, and turn your business into a well-oiled machine, head over to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com. The other thing I want to tell you about if you're a construction business owner is if you want to establish the vision for your company, if you want some specific one-on-one help solving problems in your business, establishing the vision and direction of your company, putting systems in place, growing your business, and you want one-on-one help to accelerate those results, then I do have a one-on-one coaching program. And the first step is to sign up for a free business breakthrough coaching session where we're going to do a few things. One, I'm going to help you on this call to create a crystal clear vision for what success looks like and the lifestyle that you want your business to provide for you and your family. We're also going to work to uncover some of the challenges, whether they are challenges you know about, but also uncover some of the hidden challenges that may be sabotaging the growth of your business and keeping you working too many hours without getting the results that you want. And when we're done, if you're like most of the people, the vast majority of the people that go through these calls, you're going to leave the session renewed, re-energized, focused to get to work and get after it to turn your business into a highly profitable, revenue-generating, well-oiled machine. And then we'll talk more about my one-on-one coaching program as well. So if you want to take advantage of this very limited, totally free business breakthrough coaching call for construction business owners, all you got to do to sign up for one is go to constructionleadingedge.com/call and schedule your call. If all the spots are taken, let me know. Send me an email, todd@constructionleadingedge.com, and I'll get your name on the waiting list and let you know when a spot opens up. So now, without further ado, let's get to that interview with Mr. Todd Staley. All right, Todd Staley, thanks for being on the podcast. How's it going today?
Great, thanks.
Well, This may be a first. I don't know that I've interviewed anybody else named Todd on the podcast yet, but as I said when we first talked, just about every guy that I talked to named Todd has been a great guy, so I'm sure you're going to keep the streak going. So let's start with this. Here's a question I want to jump in with. How did you grow a business by shrinking your client base? That's a little counterintuitive, so talk to us about that.
Great question. Consolidating the client base was really a product of trying to grow something that we had built kind of systematically and slowly. So consolidating a client base while trying to grow a firm is what we have used as a tool to make sure that we don't grow too fast. And it also enables us to mitigate risk. And what I mean by that is that in the industry that we're in now is so heavy in paperwork and process driven that we wanted to be able to operate as lean as we could and as efficient as we could. So every client, we're a specialty contractor, so every client that we deal with has their own set of submittal requirements, their own process flow, their own chain of communication, their own safety protocol, their own billing requirements, their own forms. And what we've been able to do is, as we grew our business and started to gain a lot of traction and movement there, we were able to kind of consolidate down and kind of handpick what clients we felt were the best fit for us as a company. And in doing so, we've been able to gain a lot of consistency and efficiency and eliminate a lot of the opportunity for human error when mistakes happen, to kind of control the chaos that lives kind of in the industry that we work in every day. So it's really a product of, it's not really a tool to grow, but I will tell you that when you do have a client that sees the relationship continue to build, there are opportunities for us that have grown, that have been born out of them bringing us to other parts of the country as well.
Gotcha. So what I heard you say was one of the reasons to shrink your customer base would be to streamline and have a more consistent process. So you're not trying to be all things to all people, which takes resources, spreads your resources out. And if you can find the right clients, the right type of clients and the right specific clients that you can double down on, then it allows you to operate more efficiently. Is that an accurate?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a model that's worked well for us the last few years, and seems to be the direction that we're headed.
Got it. So let's talk about your business. You're a specialty contractor, but tell us about your company, what you guys do, and then we're going to dig into your background, what you've learned through the process of growing this, and then we've got a lot of ground to cover. This is going to be good, but let's start with explaining who your company is and what you guys do.
Sure. So our company is IWR North America, and what we are, I'll fast forward to kind of tell you who we are today, and then I'll back up and let you know how we got there. But we're a building enclosure partner that services the United States coast to coast, top to bottom. With a limited client base, we're a little bit specific into what regions we go to, but we essentially, defining kind of a building enclosure contractor, anything that you see on the exterior of a building from edge of slab out, we go to market and try to accomplish all or as much of that exterior skin as we can underneath one umbrella. Now, our company has roots back to 1895, which is pretty neat. A lot of construction companies don't have a lot of that history, that longevity, that those kind of battle stories over the years and over the decades. But thankfully, our company's been extremely diverse and have been able to be successful and profitable for many, many years. We're a little bit unique in that we're owned by a holding company that's got 8 different separate operating P&L companies. IWR North America happens to be one of the 8. The benefits that we get out of that, we've got all of the benefits of being a big company, but we operate, on the actual specific company level as a very small family-oriented company. So having a holding company enables us to offer centralized accounting and safety and business development and quality people, and they spread those resources amongst all companies to gain consistency and round out the brand. But at the specific company level, we operate as a very small, tight-knit group. Our company today does anywhere from $30 to $50 million worth of revenue a year. The group, the IWR group, the IWR name was born out of industrial wall and roof. So from like 1960 through 2010, we were a heavy industrial metal panel contractor. And in about 2010, the company started getting into higher end architectural metal panels, developing a new client base and getting into a lot of healthcare, higher education facilities, and just that really was kind of the upturn tick of when the growth really started. I joined the company in 2011, and 2011 is when we kind of took a deeper dive into what opportunities we thought we may have as an organization to grow and to kind of take a look at what the next 100 years may look like for us.
Got it. Next 100 years. That's a pretty long-term vision. What was your background before you came to IWR?
Yeah, so I started my career, coming out of college as a, with the mindset that bigger was better, and I went to go work for one of, if not the largest, contractors in the United States, and I did that for a couple of years, and it was at that point in time, travel and relocation with a firm like that was imminent, and at the time was dating my now wife, who really had no interest in jet setting all over the world with me to pursue my career. So I moved to her hometown, St. Louis, Missouri, and went to work for a large general contractor here in St. Louis, and did that for about 8 or 9 years, which was probably the greatest career experience that I've had to date as it relates to really kind of building the foundational education that I think is so important to understanding all aspects of construction, and has really given me the tools that have allowed us to be successful here on the specialty side. The general contractor gave me an opportunity to start as an estimator, so I really started in the estimating in the pre-construction world, and did that for a couple of years, and then transitioned into the operations side. The company I was with was primarily a construction management firm, so at the time, they did not self-perform a lot of work. And towards the tail end of my career with that firm, I was running a couple projects out of town at a university here in Missouri that I was able to JV with a self-perform arm, and that's really when I started to kind of fall in love with the self-perform model, which is quite a bit different than the model that I had learned to date. But what I did learn at the time was that it's, the opportunity to increase profitability on a project is significantly increased when you start self-performing work, albeit that also comes with equally as much risk. But that challenge and that opportunity is really what attracted me to start kind of looking into potentially, the specialty side and the self-perform side of construction. And ultimately, I landed with the group that I said I joined in 2011, IWR. They had been a subcontractor of mine on a couple jobs, in a company that had been around since 1895 with a great culture, with the backbone of a holding company, with an opportunity, with an appetite to want to grow. It was an incredible opportunity, and have, I'm going on my 8th year here now, and I love every minute of it. I love the challenges of the specialty side, and it's an exciting career path.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how you and I have been on parallel paths on a variety of levels, and I had a similar experience going from the general contracting side over to the specialty contracting side. Talk about the difference in what are some of the key differences between general contractors and maybe construction managers and subcontractors and contractors that primarily self-perform the work? What were the mindset changes, the operational changes that you've seen when you've made that transition?
Yeah, sure. So, I think in general, the knowledge base required to do well in either sector is very similar. I mean, you have to have that fundamental education of construction. You've got to be able to understand sequencing, process flow, contractual relationships, but the actual day-to-day activities are very different. So geographically, kind of the trends that I've seen in my career tend to shift depending on what region you're in. But historically, and during the time that I spent with a large GC, the model was more like a CM, and that they didn't really self-perform any work. The CM model is, the high volume, low margin, low risk work. When the opportunities are plentiful, I mean, that is a very, very successful business model. When a lot of these big CM firms, and it's happened to a lot of them here locally, when they start getting challenged with either a downturned economy, or they lose market sectors, or they're challenged with the needing to increase their return on investment, they start looking into the self-perform arm. And I think that's where you've got to be very, very strategic and very analytical and very data-driven, because I think, our kind of the mindset that we have on the specialty side, and people hear me refer to, when I get asked frequently, what kind of business are you in? My response is always that I'm in the labor management business, because that really is where our risk is at. It's in our labor force. It's in the field. Those guys are kind of the heartbeat of our company, and that's where jobs are won and lost. So controlling the labor aspect of the self-perform arm is really, really exciting and can be really, really rewarding. But in our assessment with our organization, we've got what I call kind of a measure everything protocol, and I could do an entire podcast on the measure everything protocol that we've implemented here. We've given presentations to other companies and other businesses about how we go about that. But if I could summarize it, I mean, we, at any given point in time, we need to be able to know how we're doing on every single job in any snapshot of time. And to do that, you've got to be able to measure it. You've got to be able to have the data and the tools to be able to do that. And the balance, the struggle that I think a lot of people are challenged with managing labor is that you don't want to get into kind of the big brother scenario where you don't want to lose trust in your field guys, and you want to be able to make sure that they understand that the information that you're requesting of them is a tool and a guideline, and it's not the big brother approach. And we've been able to do that successfully here, and it really, really pays off. It allows us not only to manage and mitigate risk the second that one of the reports that we look at shows a potential issue. It enables us to be kind of all hands on deck. We do these reports weekly, every single Monday morning with our entire operations staff. We run these very detailed dashboard reports, and anytime something is flagged, we kind of take an all hands on deck approach and dive into it and help assess it, and that enables us to do it as early as possible, because when you're managing labor, you want to be able to identify an issue as quickly as it happens to minimize and mitigate what could be an unfavorable ending. So that measure everything approach is very important on the specialty side. And kind of the no surprises approach is another strict approach that we take here. We've got all of the tools to be able to make sure that we don't get surprised by anything. So you've got to be, and we've got to be very regimented with that. You can't be lax at that, and you can get a little bit creative, and I think everybody needs to be creative in how their team best reacts. And you don't want to just create work. They've got to be able to see that the work that they're putting into these forms and this data is actually being utilized as a tool that helps everybody. And if they don't understand that, then it becomes more of a, fill in the blank, do it quick, just pencil whip a report, and that is not. It's only the information you get is only as good as the information they put into it. So as long as everybody's bought in, it's an extremely useful tool.
Yeah, I want to dig into some labor, how to leverage your labor force. But there are several common questions that I get from my coaching clients and people who contact me from the podcast. One is reporting. How do you have one or two tips you can provide that you have found to be successful in getting good reporting from guys in the field, whether that's filling out daily reports, weekly reports, timesheets, change orders, etc.? What are some tips you can offer for getting better reporting from the field?
Yeah, so we, again, the heartbeat of our company is our guys out in the field. So what we do from our position and from the office side is we're here to support them. So our superintendents, our guys in the field, our job is to be supporting those guys. It's not vice versa. Those guys aren't required to report to us. Now we do provide some guidelines and some, directions to follow, and they understand that. But at the end of the day, if we're not giving them the tools that they need to be successful out in the field, then we're not doing our job. And so when you get down to reporting, we really try to limit the reports that our field guys have to provide. So we've got a really, really strong, and we invest extremely heavily in our operations team here in the office. The model may be working, and it may be my opinion because it's where I came from, but where we're unique on our end is that we've hired a lot of our operations project managers and directors from other general contractors. And I think that's really, really important because paperwork is so critical for multiple reasons. But if we know and understand what our clients need, and we can present that information to them in a manner that we know it'll be useful for them, it makes it a lot easier, and our clients are very, very thankful that we're able to do that. So when we're challenged with providing schedule updates or change orders or T&M pricing with all of the appropriate backup and or meeting minutes, I mean, our guys are dedicated to making sure that we're very, very diligent with that. So our guys in the field are limited to reporting. Our guys report daily productivity. So productivity tracking is probably the most critical tool that we utilize from a reporting standpoint in the field. And that is done on a daily level. And there's really a balance between how granular you can get. If you get too granular, the guys don't end up giving you the information you're looking for. So you want to be able to communicate it in a manner that is understood and digested by them, and it allows them to not have to spend 2 hours at the end of every day trying to understand your reports and give you accurate information. You want it to be somewhat of a seamless process. We've been utilizing a lot of technology resources lately to help streamline that. We're doing a lot of jobs out of town, so our superintendents, we invest in technology like so frequently. I mean, we want to be on the leading edge of technology because, again, operating as efficiently and as lean as you possibly can, technology allows you to be able to do that. So when all of our operations team are here in the Midwest, but we're doing jobs all over the country, and technology and the use of iPads and the Bluebeam software and all the software that's out there allows us to kind of do these daily productivity check-ins and reporting with our staff. I mean, they are our eyes and ears of those job sites. And I think, making sure that they've got those tools really, really, really helps kind of the paperwork. We've got away from filling out all of these, 10 different forms at the end of every day and walking into the general contracting's office and faxing it over to the office, and then our guys may look at it 3 days later. I mean, we don't do that anymore. I mean, it is, and we want it to be a snapshot in time and kind of a live outlook that everybody's able to digest.
Okay, so tracking productivity is key. You need to not be too granular in the details. So to dive in a little bit deeper on productivity tracking, your crews are doing roofing, glass and glazing, curtain wall framing, metal panels, building envelope type materials. How are you tracking productivity? Is it square footages? Is it are you breaking the jobs into work orders? How do you track productivity?
So that's a great question, and I think that's really the challenge that everybody's been up against, and how to do that accurately. What we've done, we actually start this process at the estimating level. So we've developed, and there are tons and tons of really, really good estimating tools out there, but we fall back on Microsoft Excel. We've tested and we've used a number of different software products, but we fall back on Microsoft Excel because it's a tool that not only our estimators but our guys in the office on the operations side and the guys in the field can understand. And when I say we started at the estimating level, our estimate spreadsheets when we go to bid a job is broken down. Everything's number categorized. So, for example, if we're doing a roof, all of the roofing particular activities will have a specific suffix. So, like, for example, roofing is 010, and panels will be 020, metal panels, and air barrier will be 030, and glass and glazing will be 050. And then within those different suffixes are the different categories in which we want to track labor. And our estimate, what our estimate does is it condenses and consolidates all of that information into a budget worksheet that also, which is a budget tracking matrix to be able to monitor both the material and labor on the project. But then it also turns into our timesheets so that our guys in the field, for example, if they're turning in time for the day, it'll correlate exactly with what we have in the estimate. So we don't have to do any duplicate entry. And we've been doing that for about 1.5 years now, and it's been really, really successful. And it's taken some tweaks over time. But as it relates to productivity tracking, every single one of those suffixes has a different type of tracking. For example, panels, we track panels per day. So you have to be able to identify, are you using the right crew makeup that you estimated the job with? And if you're not, you'll have to modify the panel per day output that you're going to be looking for. But at the end of every day, we get a panel per day, or we do a lot of air and water barrier projects. We do a lot of square footages per day, or boards per day, or sheets per day. It really all depends on how the estimate was built and how the superintendent and project manager want to communicate the best. So it's different in every aspect, but you cannot, and we've learned, you cannot back up and be lax on one specific activity. You've got to be you've got to be consistent across the board.
Got it. Well, thanks for the detail. One more question on that, then I want to switch gears a little bit. Are you providing your crews with some sort of production targets? Do they have a quota or a target based on the type of work they're doing, either per day or per week?
Yeah, the guys in the field, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are extremely transparent. So our superintendents going into a job know exactly what the targets are, and we've kind of got the mindset here. We've got a lot of like-minded, competitive individuals here that are, and really the goal is to beat the targets. But everybody goes into every job knowing what the goal is, what the target is, and everybody is striving to kind of beat that goal. So yeah, we're very transparent. There were times, and this is with many organizations, they take the mindset that the guys in the field, they're going to do the best that they can do every day, and they don't want to hear or know what the goals are because they're going to work as hard as they can possibly work every day, and the end result's going to be the end result. Well, that's great, and that is a great mindset to have. However, when we're kind of a productivity tracking organization that we utilize those tools for many things, inherently and even subconsciously they start, wanting to know how they're doing, and they're able to kind of take some ownership interest in trying to maintain and hit those goals.
Yeah, I completely agree with your approach. I've found that teams that don't know where the goal line is, they don't know, I like to say, what winning looks like. If they don't know what winning looks like, then they'll come up with some narrative. They'll come up with some idea of what winning looks like. And if you want your people to win, then you as the leader, whether you're the business owner or the superintendent or the project manager, you need to tell people this is what winning looks like. This is what I need you to do. And if you do this, you will win. Now, there may or may not be some sort of external motivation, some stick or a carrot or a bonus or compensation that goes along with that. I've found that simply telling people, hey, if you do this, then you're going to win. If you have the right people in that sort of situation, I have been amazed at what people will do when they know what winning looks like. I've just been blown away. So I appreciate that. Was going to be my next question. So you answered that question of, well, what about the people who don't want to be transparent, or they don't think the guys in the field care? So I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned that you win or lose based on your labor force because you're primarily in the business of labor management. Aside from production targets and being transparent, can you offer one or two tips that you found to be really successful that have helped you win with your labor force?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're with an organization that has a really neat culture, and if you don't, you can build it. I mean, I think having a culture of the really team environment, and that starts from the top down. I mean, I have and will frequently get into the trenches with anybody at any given point in time should the need, should something arise. And I think it's really, really important to get those guys in the field to understand that they are a part of the team. And that whole mindset of, I think it's fairly common for people to think the inverse of us in that, the field reports up to the office, and then the office does all the management work. I'm really a huge proponent of, we are there to feed the job site. We are there to support our superintendents, and we need to be doing anything and everything we can to give them all of the resources, be it support, be it tools, be it equipment, be it material, be it sitting at meetings with them, be it sitting in their trailer and scheduling stuff with them, dealing with, jurisdictional issues that may come up. I mean, we are there to make sure that they can do their job successfully, and I think that's important. And when you have that mindset, I think inherently they start noticing that not only are they a part of the team, they're a critical part of the team. So the way that we go to work every day, and the way that IWR is kind of built, no matter if you get a paycheck on every Friday or you get one 26 times a year, if you get a paycheck from this company, you are a part of our family, and you are treated as part of our family. I think that's really important. You don't want to segregate or silo the field from the office. And once you kind of have that harmony, things work so much better.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's this natural human tendency toward division that if it's not intentionally preempted or dealt with, then there'll be a division between office and field, or between market, the St. Louis market and the Cincinnati market, or the guys in the shop and the guys in the field. So I appreciate you saying that, and I agree completely. I like to flip the org chart either sideways or upside down, where the leader's on the bottom and supporting their people. And I interviewed a guy named Andy Boyd, who's grown a business up to about $20 million, and he said his job as the president is to hire people and help them make their dreams come true. Well, what do you want to do? I want you to be incredibly successful. And that probably catches some business owners a little sideways, but the reality is, if you help enough people in your organization become wealthy and build a career that they love, then you'll be successful as well. So it's the best thing you can do. Being selfless and giving can be very selfish if you know what I'm saying. So I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Here's another question I get. I talk with some of my coaching clients about this. They're general contractors, and they come to me and say, Todd, we're GC, we're a CM, but we're really having trouble finding good subs, good qualified subs. So I'm thinking about self-performing some of the key trades on my work. Maybe they do TI fit-up work, and they're thinking, I'm going to do my own demo, metal studs, and drywall and ceilings to try to drive schedule and have more control. What advice would you give to those individuals, since you've been a general contractor and you're now a specialty self-performed contractor? What advice would you give to a general contractor who's considering building out a self-performed division?
I mean, great question. I'll tell you. So when we were a strictly a metal panel contractor for 70 years, and before I came on board, I spent the good part of 2 years doing a lot of research and just talking to people and hearing successes and failures and then taking a deep dive into kind of the market and the trends and kind of the needs and the niches and the opportunities, and that's really what we did. Your question is really what we did. So out of one, the desire to want to grow and understanding the opportunities and the risks associated with growth in the specialties, self-perform stuff, but also, solving a problem, right? Or making somebody's life easier, or controlling your risk. If you're a general contractor and you want to be able to control schedule, you've probably got the confidence that you've got the tools to be able to kind of control schedule and procurement and things, so that it best suits kind of the success as you have defined it on that particular project. I will tell you that, we had a lot of, exploratory discussions around how do we go about that and what's going to work for us. And we determined that we were going to start self-performing air and water barrier. So if we were doing metal panels, what is the activity that happens directly behind a metal panel or a facade panel or a stone panel or a terracotta panel? And that was the air and water barrier. And did we have the confidence that we could do it? And number two, could we get the resources to do it in the field? And could we go through the appropriate training to be able to start doing it? And the answer to that question, we determined, was yes. So we started off doing and introducing air and water barrier to our scope of work. And then one thing led to another, and then we were doing more and more facades. And then we determined that because we were general contractors, because we do understand multiple scopes of work, that we could potentially go to our clients and offer them kind of a single source solution for the envelope, and that would require us self-performing some work that we weren't familiar with. But what we would be able to do to our clients is to be able to kind of compartmentalize all of the risks associated with what traditionally is done with multiple contractors. So typically on an exterior enclosure, you'll have somebody hanging studs and sheathing and air barrier and insulation and panels and curtain wall and flashings and copings and roofs. And we felt like we had the skill set, and over a couple years of doing a lot of research, we determined we then had the confidence to be able to take the next step. And so we went to market as a building enclosure contractor to kind of test the model and to see if clients would ultimately entertain kind of the approach that we were taking. But at that point in time, we did not self-perform glass and glazing. So what we did, and this is a really long way of answering your question, but what we did was we went out and partnered with some extremely diverse, extremely different, and unique in their own ways glass and glazing contractors, to where we would carry the contract, we would go to our client and take responsibility for the enclosure, but we would subcontract out the glass and glazing portion to some very, very, very large glazing contractors and then some small. And what we did over time, it was very intentional. We were building a database of lessons learned. What we were also doing at the time was assessing, talent, and we knew that ultimately, if we had a goal of wanting to get into glass and glazing, there's really three ways of doing it. Through acquisition, through some sort of JV partnership, or do it organically. And so we were also assessing that at the same time. But I think, if you're a general contractor and you're wanting to self-perform work, I think number one, and I keep going back to this, you've got to be able to have the field staff to be able to do the work. So having the resources to be able to do the work and do it right is important, but you've got to have enough runway to be able to keep those guys busy. So if you're going to start self-performing work and it's only going to be for your company, I think you're going to need to find a segment or a sector or a scope of work that's plentiful enough that when you do get the right guys, you're going to be able to keep them busy. And I think if you're a contractor large enough and you get enough work, you can do that. I think a lot of times people run the risk of they start getting concerned that they won't get numbers from other subs because from their subcontractors because they're then self-performing work, which the practical side of that I at one point in time agreed with, but I have since seen many general contractors as they start shifting over to the self-perform arm do it very successfully. So I think be strategic, and if you are truly solving a problem because you're not getting enough qualified subcontracting bids, there may be an opportunity for you to build a model that not only services you and your own work, but also other contractors. And I think at least I've seen it done successfully kind of all over the country, but I know here in St. Louis, the contractors, they all kind of have their own little self-perform arm, and I'll tell you, for the most part, you'll see them working on each other's projects, which is kind of neat to see that work.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think one of the main takeaways that I jotted down that you mentioned was there are really three ways to grow a new service line, whether that's self-performing work, whatever it might be, either through acquisition, you can grow it organically, start from scratch, or third would be to develop some JV partnerships. So I really like your approach. When you grew into the glass and glazing scopes of work, you took the JV partner approach, developed some relationships, learned the process, and watched somebody else do it, and then I assume you transitioned into self-performing that work. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did. So January 1st of 2016 is when we actually launched our own glass and glazing division within IWR. And we went about that organically. I mean, we had, again, spent a lot of time kind of trying to determine what the best approach was. But we felt like at the end of the day, what we concluded was if we could find the right people, because at the end of the day, the people are what make your company. If we could find the right people, and we had the vision that would attract talented people to want to come to work with us, that we could have a really, really successful organization. And, we went into it not knowing what the outcome was going to be. But I will tell you it has gone very, very, very successfully for us. And I credit 100% of that success to the people that not only the people that we onboarded, but having a culture that welcomed a staff that was going to double in size. I mean, we've not lost any employees during this transition. We've gone from a company that was doing anywhere from $5 to $7 million a year to a company that's doing $40 to $50 million a year annually, and we've done it with the people. And the organic approach we knew was going to be potentially challenging for us, because what we didn't want to do is have a siloed approach, meaning we don't we're going to go to market as a building enclosure contractor. We don't want to have a glass and glazing company and then a metal panel company and an air barrier company and a roofing company and a insulation company. We want it to be a building enclosure partner. Now, in order to sustain revenue and not every job is a fit for a total building envelope approach, so we do perform just single scope activities on projects quite frequently. But the organic approach, really comes down to, can you get the right people? And we had to be able to. What we didn't want to do is start in 2016 and have a different mindset with what projects we were going to be looking at. So if we're looking at, projects that range from $3 to $10 million on the facade side, we needed to be able to do that and hit the ground running at the same rate on the glass and glazing side. And doing that organically is extremely challenging. So I would say that we have really found harmony in syncing up with the right projects and with the right clients, and thankfully with the right people, we've had the resources to execute and hit the target goals that we had set forth for us.
So you've gone through this process of organically taking on another service line, growing your business pretty significantly. What would you do differently? What do you know now that you wish you had known before, and what are a few things you would do differently if you either could do it over or the next time that you take on another initiative like that?
Yeah, and so let's see. So there are absolutely no regrets. I mean, we're still learning. I mean, we're 2 years into self-performing large and small glass and glazing projects and marrying them with all the other work we do. We're 2 years into it, so we're learning, right? And I hope, 10 years from now we're still learning. But I will tell you that we built this whole, I'm going to get back to, if you can kind of build a brand that can make your clients, and not only your clients, but if you can make your clients' lives easier and provide some protection, but also their clients. Like if you're going to go to market and provide something that is going to be more expensive, or it's untraditional, it's one thing to sell it to your client, but you've got to be able to come up with something that enables them to be able to sell it to their client as well. And I think that we did we went through a huge sales effort up front and really testing the market with this total envelope approach, built up a lot of traction. So, there's some voids, here in the Midwest with some glass and glazing contractors, and I think it's, we're experiencing it and noticing it kind of coast to coast. It's a tough, glass and glazing is a tough business. I think it's the most litigious market segment in the construction industry. So I think a lot of people just naturally shy away from it. But we knew that we had to be able to enter the marketplace with an opportunity that solved some sort of a problem. When we built up all that traction and momentum, when we actually launched our glass and glazing group in 2016, our clients had the expectation that we would service anything and everything for them. And so you have to really control your desire to want to grow quickly when you've got clients excited about what you're offering and they're giving you opportunities very, very frequently. You've got to stick to your, you've got to trust your gut, and you've got to control your growth, and you cannot grow quicker than you have the resources to execute. So we've been telling a lot of clients no, and our sales guys and our estimating guys and even some of our PMs, I think, get a little bit frustrated because of how many no's we're putting out the door. And I think it's because we set an expectation really, really high right out of the gates. So I think we will, we'll eventually hit our stride, and we'll eventually be pursuing a lot more work with a lot of these clients. But out of the gates, if you want to do it right, you've got to do it very, very slowly. And I think that has been frustrating for some of our clients. So I think to answer your question, I think setting the expectation to the clients that this is going to be a slow thing and we're going to be very, very selective in what jobs we pursue, I think is important.
Yeah, I've heard it said you can either be Henry Ford or you can be Burger King. Henry Ford said you can have your Model T in whatever color you want as long as it's black. And Burger King says have it your way. And you can't, you may not want to be Burger King where everything depends on the customer. Whatever they want. You may want to be somewhere in between there where this is how we do it. And this goes back to processes as well as product. As we started the conversation out with, you may want to be a little firm with the processes that you follow with your clients because that's part of your process and how you share information, how you operate, how you manage projects is as much a part of your product as the materials you use. So we talked about, you mentioned selling, the sales process and sales conversations. Talk a little bit about some tips that you can give to specialty contractors when it comes to selling to general contractors.
So I mean, I think as you know, we live in a price-driven industry. So in my opinion, you've got to either be the cheap guy or the expensive guy. In my experience, the middle guys get killed. So if you're the cheap guy, you've got the easiest sales job there is to have in our industry. I mean, if you have figured out a way to be the most inexpensive, trusted, quality contractor out there, you have got a model that will return a lot of work for you. Unfortunately, we're not, and we're the expensive guys, which presents its own kind of unique challenges. But what I love about this industry, and especially on the specialty side, is that relationships matter. So what I mean by that is no matter how professional somebody may appear or want to be, everybody wants to work with their friends. We're all human. I mean, you just have a natural tendency to want to do that. So we really try to leverage our relationships very, very strongly, and that doesn't mean with direct clients. I mean, our relationships that we're striving to achieve live with vendors and architects and our clients, general contractors, construction managers, but also the owners. And at the end of the day, and I know you had I noticed one of the books that you had recommended on your website, Team of Teams. Great, fantastic recommendation. But we really want to be a part of everybody's team, and I think when you create that sort of that team environment approach to where people want you on their project is really how you start producing some more opportunities to be successful. Your return on investment when it comes to estimates starts producing it at the rate that you want it to. Now, if you're the expensive guy, you've got to be able to bring tangible value. Quality and safety are extremely important, so don't get me wrong. I mean, those are in our core values. But if you're gonna provide high quality and you work extremely safe, so do a lot of other people. So you are setting yourself apart, but you're in an environment where you still have a lot of competition. Because a lot of people do a lot of things right in our industry. So what do you then do to set yourself apart? I think you really got to take a deep dive and determine who you guys want to be as a company. What we did was we took a deep dive and kind of looked at some analytical data around building enclosure contractors. And if you're a contractor in our segment, our industry specific, if you're doing anywhere from $10 to $30 million a year, there's 29 of you in that group. So when you bump up to the next group and you're doing anywhere from $30 to $50 million a year, there's only 6 of us. And that's kind of the segment that we wanted to get into. So we wanted to be able to limit our competition. And to answer your question, you got to be specific into what jobs you're looking at. So in order to get to $30 to $50 million, I've got to pursue the right size projects with the right clients. If I go and bid a job for $250,000, I may be 8 of 10 on bid day. Or if I'm pursuing a job that's a $7-8 million job, there may be one or two or three of us bidding that work. So I think you got to find a way to be able to limit your competition. The other way that we limited our competition was to offer something unique, and that gets back to bringing tangible value. So we've created a way to position ourselves by limiting risk. And if we can walk into a general contractor and say, hey, typically and traditionally, you're going to have 5 or 6 different trades doing this work. We're going to do it in-house with one. You're going to write one subcontract, and you're going to be able to tell your owner that they've got one warranty. So if they're building leaks, they've got one person to call. They don't have to try to figure out and point fingers and determine who's responsible for it. You've got one person to go to. And we're also going to compartmentalize all of these risks that you guys have when it comes to communicating shop drawings and scheduling, and provide that to you in-house with one company. So in doing so, we've kind of created our own space and our own environment. And I'm not telling you we invented that model. There are a couple other people in the country that do something similar to what we do as an organization. But what it's done, and on the right projects, it extremely limits your competition, and it gives you something to sell that actually brings tangible value, knowing that we can't show up thinking we're going to be low on bid day. So what we've also done is determined, what clients and what owners do we need to be looking for. So if we're not going to be low on bid day, and our approach is we know we're going to be expensive, we need to focus specifically on what clients we're going to be working for. So we do mostly owner-owned buildings. We don't do a lot of developer-funded work. We invest heavily in projects where the owner wants, they're concerned about the life cycle of their building, and they'll see the value in having a single source envelope. And that's really allowed us to be pretty successful. We've got kind of a go, no-go procedure we do in-house here. Our director of estimating kind of runs through a protocol, and if a job is hard bid, and it's a hard bid job for our clients, there's not a lot of value that we can bring on bid day unless the scopes of work are packaged appropriately. So typically those aren't the jobs that we pursue. But I will tell you the easiest thing, in my opinion, and we're always trying to get better at this too, but the easiest thing to close jobs is follow-up phone calls. I mean, that is something that people overlook so significantly, that brings so much value, just consistently following up on the bids that you provide, or the quotes or the proposals that you put out there. I mean, just pick up the phone and follow up. So we also do weekly, we've got a pipeline, and we've got a champion for following up on bids. And I'll tell you, ever since we initiated that, I mean, we have found it to be very successful.
Great advice. Yeah, I really like your concept of don't try to be the cheapest or the best,
right,
but try to be the only. So if you can be the only person in your space who provides a solution to a problem that your clients have, then you've increased your value. Yeah, and I think a lot of it goes back to what I hear you say. There's this common thread of go back to a problem that exists. Don't try to create a solution. Don't be a solution in search of a problem, but go find a problem that your clients have. If they're a general contractor, that problem could be risk. It could be communication. If you're maybe the project owner, and I know I've spent a lot of time on the owner side of the equation, and building envelope is one of the biggest risks, maybe even the biggest risk that you have from a long-term standpoint, especially if you have complicated facade systems. So go find a problem, figure out how to solve that problem in a unique way, and then point to that value, and you will be successful. But a common mistake I see a lot of contractors make is they come across a new system, a new widget, some new product, and they think it's cool, so they pick it up and then they become a solution in search of a problem, and that's just not a great way to grow a business. So one last question I want to ask you. We're running short on time, and then I want to give people an opportunity to find out how to connect with you and find out more about your company. culture is clearly a high priority. Maybe not even a priority because priorities get shifted, but maybe I would say culture is it's a conviction. It's something really, it's a non-negotiable for your company. How do you grow leaders? How do you think about growing leaders in that culture?
Great question. So the, really, I think I had mentioned earlier, I mean, I think you learn from experiences. I think that, that's inherently how I learned. I mean, I, again, kind of grew up working on a farm in a little bitty town in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, and went to go work for one of the biggest contractors in the country out of college. And, you just learn and learn from experiences, and being able to provide kind of that top down, where I would never want to create the environment where I'm having to make all of the decisions. So I've really created and tried really hard and have been intentional about it, of trying to create, a staff and an organization where when a situation arises, my guys, they don't fear for their jobs, or at least I hope they don't. I will jump into the trenches and help them figure it out. And once they know that I've got their back, or our kind of executive team has their back on any decision that they can make, and they feel and trust that they've got the authority to make those decisions, all knowing that everything is not going to go perfect all of the time, but that's how they learn and that's how they grow. And not that I enjoy when problems arise, but when they do, and you kind of get into the trenches and they see how you maybe assist them in trying to get over those challenges or whatever scenario they're in, that at the time may appear like the sky is falling, and then at the end of the day it corrects itself, or you've stimulated some sort of alternate solution that ultimately provided success on their project. I think that's really how they learn. So I really I kind of look through things, probably from my upbringing, but I've got really an optimistic lens that I take to every situation, and I think that's really important. I mean, I think that not trying to minimize our industry at all, because I love it and I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's not an overly complicated industry. Now, at times it's extremely stressful and it requires a lot of work hours. But 9 times out of 10, I mean, there is a solution for the toughest problems out there. And if your guys and your team members and the people that have a desire to want to grow and become leaders aren't experiencing those things firsthand, they have a hard time seeing the finish line. So you want people to be a little bit reactionary to firsthand experiences, but when they experience it for the second and third time, you hope and you trust that not only can they can see the starting line, but they can see the finish line, and it helps them to be a little bit less reactive and more proactive when it comes to managing their careers or their particular project or that particular problem. I think it's overly important to not micromanage, and that's a really hard thing to do. I mean, our industry is full of type A people that want to take control, and they have the mindset that, well, I can just do it faster than I could teaching them. But I promise you, and I was that way for a while. But once you learn and you see and you grow, and if your goal is to want to grow, and I think everybody should be for the most part, you've got to be able to have those people that want to be leaders and that want to learn, and the only way to do that is through experiences. And you have to be able to provide those experiences to those people. And the only way that they're going to be willing to do that is if they know that you've got their back. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when I've been in organizations that have a culture of blame, and that I've been in cultures where the first response was to point fingers and find out whose fault it was or speculate about whose fault it was. And that's because the culture was one of fear. And in that sort of culture, everybody gets tunnel vision when problems happen, and they start looking at self-preservation. And that just creates all sorts of problems. But when you have a culture that is more like a family, as you've said in the past, where people know that they're safe, they're secure, that we're all in this together, problems come up, then problems don't get hidden, which that's the real problem in a culture of fear and blame. But when problems come up in a family type environment, it's like, hey, we got a problem over here. I need some help. And they know that they're safe. The leaders look at problems as training opportunities, and they know that, okay, there was a mistake, but I just invested in this person through this mistake, and they're probably never going to do it again. So that's great advice. I appreciate you sharing that. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share? You've got an audience of construction business owners and project managers and estimators and leaders, and there may even be a few architects who've snuck in and listened. But anything that you'd like to share that you feel like those folks would benefit from? Something you're passionate about, or it's a real problem that you see out there in the world?
I think, and this is just, again, it's all through experiences, but in our industry, in the construction industry, change is hard, and changing the mindset of your organization and or your culture and or scopes of work, nothing happens fast. And because of that, I think a lot of people get burned out or they lose steam. You just got to stick with it. You have got to keep pushing, and you have got to stay motivated, and you have got to be upbeat. And you've got to maintain that with your staff. I mean, the energy level has got to stay high. And, kind of back to what I mentioned earlier, as long as you've got kind of the foundational knowledge of construction, and I'm, assuming that most of the audience, on this does, I mean, don't be intimidated by a trade, or don't be intimidated to want to grow into something that you know very little about. When I joined this organization, I knew very, very little about metal panels. I knew less about glass and glazing. I knew absolutely nothing about roofing. But I did understand construction, and I did understand people, and as long as you have the general knowledge, you can figure it out. And you really just have to start. And just start by knowing nothing's going to happen fast. But it is exciting. I love this industry. There are so many opportunities with every company to get better and grow, and the shift in all of the latest trends. I mean, you got to be a little bit careful into what you want to believe, but nobody's got a crystal ball. But I think that it's a really exciting industry to be in, and I'm excited to see what the next kind of decade looks like for us as an organization.
Great stuff. I had a similar experience. I went from general contracting and actually owner's rep roles into the sewer rehabilitation industry, which I didn't even know existed in my previous career, and had no idea. It was frankly a black hole for me, and absolutely loved it. Loved getting into a primarily self-perform business. Grew the business from 15 employees up to 50 employees, streamlined the process, and I really enjoyed being able to impact employees' lives directly, much more directly than I could as a general contractor. So I think both Todds on this podcast would encourage you, if you have a background in general contracting or whatever it is, and you have the opportunity, maybe you're looking at an opportunity to make a change and go into a trade contractor or grow out a self-performed division, but make a change. It's a great opportunity. It's very rewarding and can be very profitable, and now's a great time to do it. So, Todd, man, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. And if people want to get in touch with you, find out more about your business, contact you directly, can you share your company website and a good way for them to contact you if you're open to that?
We're going through our strategic rebrand here, and kind of the final component is our website. So currently our website is under construction, should be up here within the next 30 days or so. But our website is IWR/NA.com. It's IWR North America, so IWRNA.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Also, our company has a page on LinkedIn, IWR North America. Again, my name is Todd Staley, S-T-A-L-E-Y. Email address is tstaley, S-T-A-L-E-Y, at IWRNA.com. Worked with a lot of people trying to grow their businesses and love to offer advice. So if anybody's got any questions or would like to bounce anything off, I'd be more than happy to help.
Sounds great. Well, I appreciate your willingness to share, and thanks again for being on the podcast. Well, there you go. That wraps that up, and it is further evidence of my theory that all guys named Todd are pretty good guys. So there you go. You may or may not agree with that, but regardless, there was a lot of good content in there and a lot of wisdom that Todd shared with you. So don't forget all the links, show notes, tips, stuff we talked about are available on the website, constructionleadingedge.com/084. This is episode 84. And if you're interested in finding out how the Construction Business Accelerator is going to help you accelerate your business, get you where you want to be, go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com. And if you're a construction business owner and you want to talk about my one-on-one coaching program and get some help in the process, go schedule your free business breakthrough session over at constructionleadingedge.com/call, CALL. As always, I appreciate the ratings and reviews that have been coming in recently. Thank you for that. If you can take a few minutes and share a rating and leave a review, that helps everybody else out there on the interwebs find out about the podcast. If you know somebody who would benefit from the podcast, share it with them. Let them know about it. They'll probably think you're a great guy or great gal as well. As always, thanks for listening. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the podcast, and I will see you next time.